The story of the Americas begins with the first footsteps of the Paleo Indians, who arrived on these vast and unknown continents thousands of years ago. Their presence marked the dawn of human settlement in a land that would eventually give rise to countless cultures and civilizations. These early wanderers adapted to the challenges of unfamiliar landscapes, from frozen tundras to fertile plains and humid forests. Over the centuries, their ways of life evolved into unique patterns that were shaped by climate, food, and necessity. Their journey was not simply one of survival, but of transformation and invention. As the Paleo Indian period slowly faded away, a new age dawned. The great beasts that once roamed these lands, such as mammoths and mastodons, disappeared, leaving behind a world that demanded new ways of living. Populations grew, and people could no longer depend on hunting alone. This moment marked the beginning of the Archaic period around 10,000 years ago. The shift was dramatic. The environment itself changed from cooler, wetter conditions into a warmer and drier climate. Forests retreated, prairies expanded, and human communities had to learn new ways to thrive. Life became more settled. Instead of roaming endlessly in search of food, groups began to establish seasonal camps. They relied on fish, bird seeds, and wild plants. But the greatest change of all was the slow yet powerful appearance of agriculture. The act of cultivating crops transformed not only their diets but their destiny. Agriculture meant that food could be grown, stored, and relied upon. It meant that communities could expand without constant fear of hunger. It meant the foundation of civilization itself. The earliest signs of farming date back as far as 8000 BC in regions of Mexico and South America. The first cultivated crop was the humble squash, whose seeds have been found in caves in Oaxaca and the Tehuacan Valley. These seeds grew larger over time, showing the clear hand of human domestication. In the high Andes, people cultivated beans, potatoes, tomatoes, and peanuts. But no crop would shape the history of the Americas more profoundly than corn. Maize began as a wild grass called teosinte. Through centuries of patient care and selective planting, early farmers of southern Mexico transformed it into the corn we know today. To these people, corn was not just food. It was a sacred gift from the gods, a symbol of life woven into myth, stories, and rituals. It fed both body and spirit and became the heartbeat of entire civilizations. In time, people discovered that corn grew best when planted with beans and squash. These three plants together became known as the Three Sisters. Corn provided tall stalks for beans to climb. Beans restored the soil with nitrogen. Squash spread its broad leaves across the ground, holding in moisture and blocking weeds. This system created a perfect balance of nutrition and sustainability. As knowledge of these techniques spread across trade routes, agriculture spread with it. Slowly, people abandoned nomadic lives and began building permanent villages. Settlements grew larger. With steady food supplies, populations expanded. New roles appeared within society. Some people became farmers, while others specialized as craftsmen, builders, or leaders. This division of labor marked the rise of social classes and the seeds of true civilization. From the fertile valleys of Mexico to the dry highlands of Peru, early societies blossomed. Along the north-central coast of Peru lay one of the most astonishing early civilizations of the Americas. In the barren desert of the Soup Valley, immense pyramids rose from the sand. This was the Norte Chico civilization, also known by its great city Caral. Emerging around 3500 BC, it became one of the 6 original cradles of civilization on Earth. While Egypt and Mesopotamia flourished across the ocean, Caral thrived in total isolation. The city of Caral stretched across more than 160 acres. Its most impressive structure, the Pyramid Mayor, stood as large as 4 football fields, with a massive staircase leading from a sunken circular plaza to its upper platform. Thousands of laborers, architects, and artisans must have worked in unity to build such monuments. Surrounding the pyramid lay smaller mounds and residential quarters. The elite lived in spacious rooms atop the pyramids, while workers resided in humbler homes on the edges of the city. Caral was not merely a religious or ceremonial site. It was a hub of innovation. Its people built irrigation canals that turned dry desert soil into fertile fields. They cultivated cotton, which allowed them to make better fishing nets. With these nets, coastal communities caught vast amounts of fish and exchanged them with inland farmers. This network of cooperation created a vibrant economy and demanded centralized organization. Caral became the heart of governance and administration. Remarkably, there is no evidence of weapons or fortifications in Caral. This was a society built on cooperation rather than conquest. Leadership must have relied on persuasion and ritual to guide large populations toward common goals. Among the artifacts found in Caral was the oldest known quipu, a string of knotted cords used for record-keeping. These early records suggest that counting, trade, census, and taxation were already essential to life in the first American civilization. While Caral flourished in South America, another mystery was unfolding in the north. In present-day Louisiana, 5,500 years ago, people gathered to build enormous earthen mounds at a site known as Watson Break. The mounds, arranged in an oval pattern, predate the pyramids of Egypt and Stonehenge in Britain. Yet their purpose remains uncertain. No burials, no treasures, and no temples have been found within them. The people who built Watson Break were still hunter-gatherers without agriculture or permanent villages. Yet they came together in great numbers to raise monumental earthworks. This challenged long-held beliefs that only farming societies with chiefs and rigid hierarchies could build such structures. The resources of the Mississippi Valley were rich enough to sustain groups large enough to undertake the work without farming and without kings. Artifacts discovered at Watson Break show careful planning and measurement, suggesting that the builders had an advanced understanding of geometry and astronomy. Many mounds align with the rising and setting sun at solstices. Perhaps they were calendars, ceremonial platforms, or markers of identity. We may never know for certain, but they reveal a society capable of immense cooperation and vision. Farther north around the Great Lakes, another revolution was beginning. Early peoples here discovered native copper scattered in nuggets along rivers and lake shores. By 4000 BC, they had learned to hammer, shape, and polish copper into tools, weapons, and ornaments. This became known as the Old Copper Culture, one of the earliest traditions of metallurgy in the world. Mining sites have been found across the region, especially on Isle Royale and the Keweenaw Peninsula. Miners used stone hammers and fire to crack rock and expose veins of copper. With this metal, they fashioned knives, spear points, awls, and axes. Over time, they also made pendants, beads, and bracelets, suggesting copper gained not only practical value but also social and spiritual meaning. In burials, copper ornaments often accompanied the dead, marking status or serving as sacred offerings. As centuries passed, trade networks expanded and knowledge spread. By 3,000 years ago, a new era had begun in North America. This was the woodland period. People now lived in permanent villages. They cultivated crops more widely and created pottery to store and cook food. Societies grew more complex, with leaders, artisans, and religious specialists. Among the most important woodland cultures were the Adena and later the Hopewell. The Adena people lived in regions of Ohio, West Virginia, Kentucky, and Indiana around 1000 BC. They built small villages of round houses with conical roofs. They farmed squash, gourd, sunflowers, and maize while also hunting and gathering. The Adena are remembered for their great earthworks. They built hundreds of burial mounds, some small, others towering like hills. Perhaps the most famous is the Serpent Mound in Ohio. Stretching over 400 meters, this vast effigy depicts a snake uncoiling across the land, its mouth opening to a circular mound. Seen from above, it is breathtaking in its scale and mystery. Some believe it symbolized astronomical alignments, others think it represented myths of creation and rebirth. Radiocarbon dating suggests the Adena were the original builders. The Adena culture thrived for nearly 1,000 years before fading around 200 CE. Some of their traditions flowed into the Hopewell culture, which rose in the same region. The Hopewell expanded mound building on an even greater scale, creating vast geometric earthworks of circles, squares, and octagons. They built massive centers that served as ceremonial and trade hubs, connecting distant regions from the Great Lakes to the Gulf of Mexico. The Hopewell were master traders. They obtained obsidian from the Rocky Mountains, copper from Lake Superior, shells from the Gulf Coast, and mica from the Appalachian Mountains. Their burial mounds contained finely crafted ornaments, pipes, and jewelry. This wide exchange of goods was matched by an exchange of ideas, stories, and beliefs. Life during the woodland period was not without challenges. As populations grew, competition for resources increased. Some communities turned to conflict and warfare. Chiefs gained more power and societies became more stratified. Yet the legacy of the Adena and Hopewell endured in the mounds that still rise above the forests and fields of Ohio. The story of the early Americas is one of resilience, adaptation, and creativity. From the first seeds of squash to the sacred gift of corn, from the silent mounds of Louisiana to the copper mines of the Great Lakes, from the pyramids of Caral to the serpent winding through the hills of Ohio, ancient peoples built worlds of meaning, community, and innovation. They laid the foundation for the civilizations that would follow, and their achievements continue to challenge the way we understand human history.